Relationships and Sexuality Education, Northern Ireland Amendment Regulations 2023.
I call the Minister to move the motion.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Farag. It's a pleasure to serve under your stewardship today, and I beg to move that the committee has considered the Relationships and Sexuality Education (Northern Ireland Amendment Regulations 2023, Section 12(3) of the Northern Ireland Act, Executive Formation Act, has dictated that the instrument should be laid as made affirmative. Yes, happily.
If you're treating this issue as a conscience vote, if your party is doing that.
In my opening remarks, I'd like to recognise the clear will of this House for the Government to deliver on its statutory duty with respect to sexual and reproductive health education in Northern Ireland. In passing the Northern Ireland Executive Formation, etc. Act 2019, this House decided that the recommendations made by the 2018 report of CEDAW, the UN Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, should be implemented. Colleagues will recall previous debates in 2019, 2020, 2021 and 2022 in relation to ensuring that abortion services were made available in Northern Ireland and the outcomes of those debates. Today's debate is not about reopening the ethical issues decided upon by this House, but to ensure the implementation of the CEDAW recommendation to make age-appropriate, comprehensive and scientifically accurate education on sexual and reproductive health and rights, covering contraception and access to abortion, a compulsory component of the curriculum in grant-aided schools in Northern Ireland, and to monitor its implementation.
Would my friend give way on that?
I'll happily give way to my
I'm grateful for my right honourable friend for giving way on this. Would he just clarify, would this be in any way different from that which is currently done in England, and has any assessment been made about how parents feel about how it operates in England?
I can clarify, actually, it will be exactly the same as being implemented in England at this point in time. And I'll talk about parents and actually opinions in a moment. So thank you. I thank my knighted and honourable friend for his intervention. In implementing the decision of this House, I have sought to ensure that the education provided would indeed be similar to that already provided in England with regard to contraception and abortion, and these regulations do exactly that. Sexual and reproductive health education is an important component in ensuring women and girls are well informed of the choices available to them. The CEDAW report found that relationships and sexuality education in Northern Ireland is, and I quote, underdeveloped or non-existent, since it is at the school's discretion to implement the contents of the curriculum according to its values and ethos, end of quote, and that, open quote, data shows that the rate of contraception use amongst young people in Northern Ireland is lower than their rates of sexually transmitted infections are, and the rates of sexually transmitted infections are higher compared with their peers in other parts of the United Kingdom. Furthermore, the prevalence of unplanned teenage pregnancy in Northern Ireland is higher compared with other European Union countries, 6 times higher in deprived areas of Northern Ireland, end of quote. We know that the current system is failing children in Northern Ireland when it comes to sexual education. The Gillen Review in 2019 recommended the implementation of a statutory and standardised RSE curriculum delivery in schools. More recently, investigations have been carried out by the Northern Ireland Education Training Inspectorate and the Northern Ireland Human Rights Commission. Indeed, the Education Training Inspectorate collected the views of 14,665 pupils and found that most primary pupils want to learn more about such issues as we're talking about. Happily give way to the Honourable Gentleman.
Could the Secretary confirm that this complies with Section 76 of the Northern Ireland Act, and what consultation has been carried out to ensure that it does comply with Section 76?
Yeah, I have you will, but later in my speech, if you'll allow me. The Human Rights Commission recently conducted an investigation into relationship and sexuality education in Northern Ireland and recommended that the education (brackets curriculum minimum content) and (brackets Order Northern Ireland 2007) be amended to reflect the CEDAW committee recommendation. That's exactly what these regulations do. In addition to this, a 2022 survey commissioned by a sexual and reproductive health charity, Informing Choices NI, highlighted 78% of MLAs, members of the Legislative Assembly, agreed that there should be a standardised curriculum regardless of a school's ethos. Now, Mrs. Farage, I do not take this decision lightly, and I remain fully committed to protecting the Belfast Good Friday Agreement in all its dimensions. The devolution settlement does not absolve this government of its clear statutory duty. It has always been my expectation and preference that the Department for Education would drive forward, in Northern Ireland, would drive forward the implementation of this CEDAW recommendation, with the relevant legal powers, policy and operational expertise to do so. We have given the Department of Education and the Northern Ireland Executive every possible chance to move forward, and we've engaged extensively to see how we could best support delivery. The Department of Education has made some progress on this issue and has been working on the Relationships and Sexuality Education Progression Framework. We assess this can easily be updated to make it fully compliant with the CEDAW recommendation. While some progress has been made, the Department of Education has not acted to implement the required compulsory changes to the curriculum. This statutory instrument has the following effects. It amends the Education Northern Ireland Order 2006 and the Education Curriculum Minimum Content Order Northern Ireland 2007 for adolescents to make age-appropriate, comprehensive and scientifically accurate education on sexual and reproductive health and rights, covering prevention of early pregnancy and access to abortion, a compulsory component of the curriculum for adolescents. It places a duty on the Department of Education to issue guidance by the 1st of January 2024 on the content and delivery of the education required to be provided, and places a duty on the Board of Governors and principal of every grant-aided school to have regard to the guidance. Also, the Department of Education is required to publish a report by the 1st of September 2026 on the implementation of the updated curriculum in grant-aided schools and lay the report before the Assembly. I and the Government recognise the sensitivity of this topic, and that some parents may wish to teach their child about sex education or make alternative arrangements for sex education to be provided in line with their religious background or belief about the age that their child or children should access sex education. In recognition of this, the regulations also place a duty on the Department of Education to make regulations about the circumstances in which a pupil may be withdrawn from education on sexual and reproductive health and rights or elements of that education at the request of the parent. This follows the approach taken in England and Scotland. The amendments to the curriculum come into force on the 1st of July 2023 in preparation for the 2023-2024 academic school year. The rationale behind them coming into effect into force date in relation the rationale behind the coming into force date in relation to the Department of Education issuing guidance is to allow the department as much time as possible to progress work on the guidance in preparation for delivery of the education during the school year. The duty on the Department of Education to issue guidance on the content and delivery of the required education comes into force on the 1st of January 2024. This will allow the Department of Education to complete equality screening under Section 75 of the Northern Ireland Act 1998 in line with the Department's equality scheme, and will allow time for consultation should this be needed. The question of whether the Department of Education will be required to consult is a matter for the Department, in line with their equality scheme duties. As set out in the regulations, the Government expects that the Department will consult on both the guidance and the provisions for the circumstances in which a pupil may be excused from the education or specified elements of that education. Consultation with parents is already common practice in Northern Ireland. The schools happily give way to the older gentleman.
Thank you, Secretary, for giving way. In the circumstances which could well happen in Northern Ireland, where not only an individual parent but collectively parents in schools decided that they did not want their children, plural, to take part in such lessons, what would the position of the department and the education authority when there is collectively a sizable number of people who have decided not to take part?
It would be exactly the same place as it is in England at this point in time, and the education would take place for those that do want it to take place. A school's RSE policy should be subject to consultation with parents and endorsed by a school's Board of Governors, These regulations do not change that approach, and we expect and encourage the Department of Education to engage and consult with parents on the guidance they produce. The Department of Education and the Council for Curriculum, Examinations and Assessment, the CCEA, have been developing an RSE progression framework which we expect to be will be adapted and used in the guidance issued by the Department. Significant stakeholder consultation on the framework has been undertaken by the CCEA. We expect the progression framework will be further developed before being utilised as the guidance that will be issued in January 2024. We would expect this to continue, however. The resources will need to be examined to ensure they comply with the updated curriculum. It's important to state that this government believes that educating adolescents on issues such as how to prevent a pregnancy, the legal right to an abortion in Northern Ireland, and how relevant services may be assessed should be done in a factual way that does not advocate a particular view on the moral or ethical considerations of abortion or contraception. While schools will be under a duty to teach the updated curriculum within the 2023-2024 school year, there will be a period of implementation and a need for meaningful engagement with teachers and parents. Officials in the Northern Ireland office will continue to work closely with the Department of Education. They have also been engaging with relevant educational stakeholders to make them aware of the changes to the curriculum, and we understand that further engagement with schools, parents and young people is also very important so that they feel reassured about the content of this updated curriculum. With that, I commend these regulations to the committee.
The question is that the committee has considered the Relationships and Sexuality Education Northern Ireland Amendment Regulations 2023. Peter Kyle.
Thank you, Mrs. Varg. It is a pleasure to serve for the first time to speak under your chairship. I'm also grateful to the Secretary of State for being here in person and delivering this SI to the House. The regulations before the committee today will ensure that Northern Ireland's curriculum meets the rights and standards on sex education, sex and relationship education, bringing it into line with the curricula in the rest of the United Kingdom. With these regulations, the Secretary of State is meeting statutory duty to implement the recommendation 86D of the report of the committee on the elimination of discrimination of women. As a result, age-appropriate, comprehensive and scientifically accurate education on sex and reproductive health and rights, covering prevention of early pregnancy and access to abortion, will become a compulsory component of the curriculum for adolescents in Northern Ireland. The Labour Party fully supports these measures. They are a critical step in ensuring that all parts of the United Kingdom meet their human rights obligations to children in this area. All adolescents deserve age-appropriate, comprehensive and scientifically accurate relationships and sex education. Of course I'll give way.
And does he not also agree with me that it's important that the tone is right in the way this information is developed, and schools will have the freedom to present it in a way that they think is appropriate, not only for their age, but also for the type of children attending in that school?
As somebody who's been governor of several schools, I'm grateful for him intervening and allowing me to say, as chair of a school for 7 years, I can tell you that schools provide this kind of service